Hello, Pirate Dave here, and it is time for another Phantom Sunday story. This time, Sunday story number 2, The Precious Cargo of Colonel Winn, coming to us from October 22nd, 1939. To recap the previous Sunday story, which would be the League of Lost Men, the titular League of Lost Men were a group of shipwrecked prisoners that decided to continue their life of crime by extorting local tribes and burning down their huts when they refused to pay them. The tribe took a lepidopterist, a butterfly scientist, hostage, and at the same time came under the gaze of the Phantom, who dismantled the organization and turned them over to the authorities with the help of the Bandar tribe. The Bandar really got a hero moment in that story, and that's where we pick up on the precious cargo of Colonel Winn. Let's go ahead and get right into it, because that first panel actually talks about, for a short time I must leave the deep woods. So the Phantom's having a little bit of a rest from all of his wounds, and in that second panel, Garan actually mentions, have you recovered from your wounds? Are you strong enough to travel? Unlike the daily stories, keep in mind that the Sunday stories are formatted a little bit more clearly. Every single page is a Sunday, right? So the Sunday that this story started, this is what the reader would have seen, these 8 panels, including this lead-in panel there. So last Sunday, before October 26th, they would have seen the end of the League of Lost Men. So it's picking up right after that. So the Phantom's taking a break from all of it. He's running through the jungle. Meanwhile, there's this safari happening, and we have Colonel Winn. Here he is. The guide that he has with him tells him they can't go through the deep woods because it's the Phantom's territory, and the Bandar are pygmy poison people and they're dangerous. And he's also asking, hey, why do you have so many guards? You don't have any precious cargo. And that's when Colonel Winn says, the cargo is in my head. What kind of precious cargo could be in his head? And who is following Colonel Winn right on his trail? Very interesting. Getting right into the precious cargo of Colonel Winn, apparently. Meanwhile, the Phantom arrives at Morristown, which is where Colonel Winn is headed. And Colonel Winn is already there. He's missed the last plane. He's got to take a ship out of there. These men are still following him. They stage a diversion in the corner, and they snatch Colonel Winn. The Phantom just happens to see the kidnapping. Next week's series of panels, they're taking on Colonel Winn into their boat. Who knows what they're going to do? But the Phantom intercedes. He jumps on the boat and tackles the men and knocks them out. Those 2 separate stories of the Phantom and Colonel Winn colliding in that week. Colonel Winn, of course, is thankful. Talks about the important mission that he has because of 3 little figures I'm carrying in my head. What could these 3 figures be? Unfortunately, the Phantom didn't take out all of those men, because one of them shoots from the pillar and hits Colonel Winn. And the Phantom, this is actually an interesting panel. We can take a little break here and mention the Phantom replies with a quick shot, the end of the sniper. So the Phantom actually kills a man here. Again, in the Phantom's early stories, he did not have this strict no-killing rule. He did avoid killing wherever possible, but, right here, this man's already presented himself as a threat. He's already shot Colonel Winn, so he's got to take him out. That's really the only options. Colonel Winn is dying, so he tells the Phantom, you've got to carry on without me. Get a pencil and paper. I'll write down what's in my head. Colonel Winn's secret, drawn with his dying, what is that? 5/6, x over 7. There may be a different way to say that. Maybe you have an idea of what this means. Let's go ahead and continue. The Phantom doesn't know what it means, and Colonel Winn can't say much. He's dying. You've got to go meet Gloria. You've got to go to an Arabian hotel, Gloria Dean. And Colonel Winn is dead. The Phantom's off with Colonel Winn's precious cargo, this secret message he has of 3 little figures. So the Phantom decides to take Colonel Winn's place aboard the ship. These men, thinking they have originally ended Colonel Winn, they realize somebody's occupied his cabin in his name. They go and they peek. This is a little silly, right? They just peek in the porthole and they see the Phantom sitting there. It's not very secretive of the Phantom, but he does mention in this panel he hasn't slept for 2 days. So maybe he's just got sleep deprivation. He's not thinking right. These men decide they're going to blow dart through that porthole. Oh, but good boy Devil is there to grab the blow dart gun before they can do anything. Seeing that they've failed, they decide to come up with another scheme. One of the men shaves his beard off so they don't seem familiar, and they try to poison the Phantom's meal. Of course, Devil recognizes the guy right away, and the Phantom doesn't catch on at first, but now I understand why Devil barked. He remembered your smell, a sort of rat odor. The Phantom actually says, "Hey, you know what? You wanted me to eat the soup? Well, you eat it." And so the guy, of course, doesn't want to eat the soup, and he just knocks him out. His friend comes in, and he knocks out the other friend, and the two are brought to justice the next week. All seems to be well, but this third man comes out. Well, I guess fourth man, because the Phantom ended up killing the sniper, right? Comes out and he bails him out. Meanwhile, the Phantom goes to meet Gloria, and Gloria, Colonel Winn, I've been expecting you. Why would she think that the Phantom's Colonel Winn? That's very weird. Phantom's just as suspicious, and I hate to call a lady a liar, but I don't think you're Gloria. What a coincidence. I know you're not Colonel Winn. Oh, this lady is in with those devious thugs. The Phantom's like, I thought I took you guys to jail. And they're like, well, jail can't hold me. Apparently they can't hold the Phantom either, because the Phantom quickly dispatches them once again. He runs off with this fake Gloria and into a nearby hotel that they were meeting at. I guess the Phantom surmises that Gloria must be somewhere inside that hotel. So she brings the woman in there. She asks a nearby maid, "Where's the American girl? Which room? Room 12. It's Gloria." Apparently that's Gloria. He shoves fake Gloria into a closet. And this was a great panel. Look at the beautiful, beautiful figure illustrated on Gloria here. The Phantom climbs off with Gloria, trying to get away from the thugs. They make it to the rooftop, and they have a little bit of a moment to get acquainted. This was an interesting panel because I think the dialogue is switched up here. Phantom says, "Now, while I catch my breath, who are you?" And Gloria says, "That's unimportant. Just before Colonel Winn died, he gave me a coded message and told me to find you." Which that doesn't make any sense, because Gloria clearly wasn't there when Colonel Winn died. I guess she could have meant like maybe a couple days before he died, but in the very next panel, she starts crying because she discovers he's dead. So I think the Phantom was supposed to say, "That's unimportant, blah, blah, blah," just before Colonel Winn died. And Gloria was supposed to say, "Now, while I catch my breath." It's just a very interesting error. I don't have any insight into the editing practices of 1939, but, in 8 panels, that's a little rough, right? Gloria relays the story of her and Colonel Winn each being supplied with a part of a code. Gloria was kidnapped by the fake Gloria that we saw earlier there, and she actually shares the code that she received with Phantom. She has the word plosi, or the letters PLOSI, and the Phantom had, of course, 5/6 X/7. The Phantom works this out really quickly. Wait a minute. X on 7. Leave out 7. Stick in the plosi. Then it reads explosion. Is the Phantom right or wrong? I'm going to go ahead and spoil it a little bit. Yeah, no, apparently he is completely right here. I don't know, maybe X on 7 was a common way to say the X/7 back in 1939. I wouldn't have put this together. I don't know why you would put X in front of plosi and then put the on at the end of it. And he decides that the rest of it that doesn't have to do with the word explosion must tell the date and the time and the place. It's not the best reveal for the precious cargo of Colonel Winn, but now apparently the Phantom and Gloria are involved in upsetting some sort of terrorism scheme, some sort of explosion that's going on. The Phantom decides he's got to go after these men, and this this fourth gentleman, I guess the ringleader that came to bail him out, he thought he shot the Phantom, but of course the Phantom ducks down and plays dead. Somebody mentioned like the Phantom does this a lot, and they were absolutely right. He plays dead quite a lot. This is probably the smartest Phantom thug we've seen in a while, because he decides once he gets close enough, he's gonna double tap him. He's gonna make sure the Phantom's dead by shooting him again. But apparently he gets just a little bit too close, and the Phantom knocks him out. Meanwhile, Tweedledee and Tweedledum over here, he's been gone 20 minutes. What's keeping him? He walked 20 feet away, gentlemen. He walked 20 feet away from you. Have you seriously been standing 20 feet away for 20 minutes? Come on. The Phantom takes the ringleader, it seems, the lead thug in, starts to interrogate him, but he gives him nothing, so he just knocks him out cold. And so he decides to use him as some of his mythos. The other two thugs start stirring, looking for their friend, but they find him in the car with a skull mark on him, the sign of the skull on his jaw. I do love those moments when the Phantom really reinforces his unseen, presence, his mythology. Let's get out of here. They take off in their car. The Phantom drops onto the roof. They don't seem to see that he's there yet. Meanwhile, Gloria's following in the car. Keep in mind the car that she's driving there. That'll be important. They talk about what's going on, and the Phantom decides, we've gone far enough. So he just droops his hand in front of us. This is really good, callback, right? Because they saw the sign of the skull on the guy's face. They see the skull ring on the Phantom, so they know it's the Phantom on top of there. But I'm sure that they would be just as scared if anybody was on top of their car. And I love this panel. What an action shot, right? Fantastic. I don't know. Here's a weird coloring issue, right? Because the Phantom pulls this guy out of the water, and this seems to be the lead thug that he had knocked out earlier, right? But that lead thug, just to sort of flip back, was wearing a blue suit, and now he's wearing an orange suit. I don't know if this was an original coloring issue when the comic came out in 1939, or if this was an error that Hermes Press made. That would be weird to me, that they would just suddenly change the color of the suit, especially having these strips side by side to compare. So I'm going to assume that it was an original color issue. So this chief thug has changed suit color. Anyway, the Phantom waterboards him for a bit. And so he decides to admit that they're blowing up this place called Sand Dam, but you're too late. The powder boat's ready to go. Meanwhile, we see the powder boat getting ready out there with some other thugs. The Phantom races to Sand Dam. Good night, if I only had wings. It's very thrilling adventure. He makes it back to Gloria, and do you see her car? She's got a red car now. The car that the Phantom was riding on top of that crashed into the water, that was a red car, but Gloria was riding a blue car. So this is another weird coloring issue. Again, I'm going to assume that it was an original coloring issue and not an error by Hermes Press. But anyway, the Phantom and Gloria decide to hijack an airplane, the Phantom at gunpoint, as he normally does. And they jump out of the plane in a thrilling parachute down to catch up with this powder boat. Of course, Gloria's having a lot of fun. But the Phantom's like, I thought you'd never get down. Seconds are precious right now. The Phantom rushes to, I guess, the local authorities that are watching the dam, lets them know there's a boat out there, lets them know what's going on, but that they can't send any soldiers, no motorboat. That pilot will fire the fuses before we can reach him. So the Phantom's got to go after him alone. So if seconds were precious, why'd you bother telling this guy if you've got to go after the boat alone, Phantom? I mean, I hate to be so critical, but there's, just some odd inconsistencies there with the Phantom's philosophy. He's still tired, right? He still didn't get a whole lot of sleep on that boat. The Phantom makes it on through the powder boat and takes down the boatman, who he's actually using this lit fuse to encourage him to give up all the information. Because the powder boat guy, he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to get exploded or anything. So he tells him exactly where the where the gentlemen are that sent the powder boat in the first place. The Phantom makes it back there and knocks out this guy. He catches this guy from behind, grabs him in this like crazy neck suplex. Look at that. Brings them back to the authorities he was talking to earlier. The explosion is avoided. The Phantom saved the day. You'll have a story for your grandchildren. That man was the Phantom. I love little endings like that just really cement the mythology of the character. And that's where the precious cargo of Colonel Winn ends. I have to admit that the of course allure, the mystery of the precious cargo of Colonel Winn, both of those elements, right? Both the cargo and Colonel Winn, who are they? Neither of those were like really satisfying answers. The precious cargo is this really complex like sort of code that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't, I don't know, like it kind of doesn't matter. It could have been an explosion, it could have been like them poisoning the water, or it could have been any number of things. It didn't matter that it was an explosion, right? And we still don't know what the 5/6 or the number 7 means in terms of that. I guess it could have been some sort of coordinate system for the dam. This is just me speculating wildly because, of course, we're given no answers. This is given to us purely as an adventure story, and it's a little bit gratuitous in some elements, right? For 1939, for a 1939 superhero adventure story. As I pointed out with those panels with Gloria, even the way that she's drawn, it's just a little bit gratuitous. And again, I'm not trying to seem like a prude, but just in the context that we're talking about. So this story has a lot of action, a lot of adventure. It has that compelling hook in the story title and the mystery of what precious cargo is and what it means. And then once it reveals the what the precious cargo is, that there's an explosion, the story shifts to this suspenseful chase tale with a lot of action in it. So as a story, it's kind of like weak, right? The plot doesn't make a ton of sense and it's not super satisfying. But as an action adventure color story that you're getting in 1939, I can see that it might have been pretty exciting for people. And so I don't want to rate this too low. I don't want to say that it's a stinker or anything, because I just came off the daily story that I didn't have a whole lot of fun with, the Golden Circle. I do like the action adventure aspects of the precious cargo of Colonel Winn. However, I think that we could have been given more with the payoff on what the actual precious cargo of Colonel Winn is. But maybe you enjoyed the adventure yourself. Maybe you enjoyed Gloria. She was a knockout, and we're getting a little bit more of that with the Phantom in the Sunday line, right? Because he's met the daughter of the butterfly scientist in League of Lost Men, and now he's met Gloria Dean in the precious cargo of Colonel Winn. And next week we're going to get the Fire Goddess, I believe, is Sunday story number 3. But that won't be next week. Sorry. The next week these readers would have got Fire Goddess. Next week we're getting another daily story, if I remember chronologically. That's just how it works out. But the next Sunday story is Sunday story number 3, the Fire Goddess. Phantom's gonna meet another woman in the Fire Goddess. So hopefully you enjoyed the precious cargo of Colonel Winn. I was Pirate Dave, and I'll see you next time. Bye.